The laughter stopped mid-sentence. Jimmy Fallon's signature grin froze on his face as he looked across his desk at the woman sitting in the guest chair. Something in her eyes had shifted, something that made the bright studio lights feel dimmer, the audience's energy feel heavier. What started as a celebration of success was about to become something much deeper. It was a Wednesday night taping at Studio 6B in Rockefeller Center. The Tonight Show was running its usual rhythm: monologue jokes about the day's news, a silly game with a celebrity guest, and now the heartwarming segment that had become Jimmy's signature. Tonight's guest was supposed to be a feel-good story, the kind that sent viewers to bed with smiles on their faces. Maria Esperanza Gutierrez sat across from Jimmy in the guest chair, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She wore a simple black dress that she had bought specifically for this occasion, the first new dress she had purchased for herself in over 15 years. At 52, Maria carried herself with the quiet dignity of someone who had spent decades making invisible sacrifices. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and despite the studio makeup, the lines around her eyes told stories of early mornings and late nights, of worry and hope carried in equal measure. The Roots were playing softly in the background, their usual upbeat energy providing the soundtrack for what was supposed to be a celebration. The audience, 200 people packed into the intimate studio, was buzzing with the kind of anticipation that comes before heartwarming stories. They had been told this segment was about the American dream, about hard work paying off, about a mother whose sacrifices had led to her son becoming a doctor. Jimmy leaned forward in his chair, his elbows resting on his desk in that casual pose that made millions of viewers feel like they were having a conversation with a friend. He had done this thousands of times. The setup, the questions that would draw out the inspiring details, the moment where the audience would erupt in applause. He was a master at finding the humanity in every story, at making people feel seen and celebrated. "So, Maria," Jimmy began, his voice carrying that warm enthusiasm that had made him America's favorite late-night host. "Your son Miguel just graduated from medical school at UCLA. That must be an incredible feeling." Maria nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Yes, it is very, how do you say, surreal. For 30 years, I have been cleaning offices in downtown Los Angeles. Every night, I would see the doctor's diplomas on the walls, and I would think, maybe someday, maybe my Miguel." The audience let out a collective ah, the kind of sound that comes naturally when people hear about dreams being realized. Jimmy's smile widened, sensing the emotional journey this story would take. "Tell us about that journey," Jimmy encouraged, settling back in his chair. "I mean, raising a son who becomes a doctor while working night shifts, that couldn't have been easy." Maria's hands tightened slightly in her lap. For just a moment, something flickered across her face. Not pride, not joy, but something deeper and more complex. She looked down at her hands, then back up at Jimmy. "It was not easy, no," she said quietly. "But Miguel, he was so smart, even as a little boy. He would do his homework at the office where I cleaned, sitting at the big conference table while I worked around him. He would ask me, 'Mama, why do you work so much?' And I would tell him, 'So you can have a different life, mijo, so you can have choices I never had.'" The studio was quiet now, the audience hanging on every word. This was exactly the kind of story that made great television. The immigrant mother, the sacrificing parent, the American dream realized. Jimmy could feel the emotional arc building, could sense where this was heading. "And now he's Dr. Miguel Gutierrez," Jimmy said, his voice filled with admiration. "I bet you're the proudest mom in the world right now." That's when everything changed. Maria looked directly into Jimmy's eyes, and for the first time since the cameras had started rolling, her carefully composed expression cracked. Not with joy, but with something much more complicated. Her eyes filled with tears, but these weren't tears of happiness. "I am proud," she whispered, her voice barely audible through the studio speakers. "But I am also—" She stopped, looking away from Jimmy, out toward the audience, then down at her hands again. The silence stretched on, no longer comfortable, no longer part of the show's rhythm. Jimmy leaned forward, his host instincts kicking in. "You're also what, Maria?" he asked gently. Maria took a shaky breath. When she spoke again, her voice was stronger but filled with a pain that cut through the studio like a blade. "I am also very, very tired." The admission hung in the air like a confession. Not the kind of tired that comes from a long day, but the bone-deep exhaustion of someone who had been carrying an impossible weight for decades. "I have been cleaning offices for 30 years, Maria continued, her voice gaining momentum as if a dam had broken. 30 years of working from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., 5 days a week. 30 years of sleeping during the day so I could take Miguel to school, help him with homework, make sure he had what he needed." Jimmy's expression began to change. This wasn't going according to the script they had discussed in pre-production. This wasn't the inspirational story about sacrifice paying off. This was something rawer, more honest. 30 years, Maria repeated, her voice rising slightly. "Do you know what 30 years means? It means I have never seen a sunset that I wasn't working through. It means I have never taken a vacation, never been to a movie theater, never gone to a restaurant just because I wanted to." The camera operators exchanged glances. In the control room, producers were whispering into their headsets, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let this moment play out. But Jimmy, sensing something profound happening, made a decision that would define this episode. He stood up from his desk. In 15 years of hosting The Tonight Show, Jimmy had rarely left his position behind the desk during an interview. It was his anchor, his home base, the place where he felt most comfortable. But something about Maria's words, about the pain in her voice, made sitting feel impossible. "Maria," Jimmy said, walking around the desk to stand closer to her, "look at me." She looked up, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks, her careful makeup beginning to streak. The audience was completely silent, sensing that they were witnessing something unscripted, something real. "Tell me what you're really feeling," Jimmy said, his voice stripped of all performance, all entertainment value. This was Jimmy Fallon the person, not Jimmy Fallon the host. Maria's composure completely collapsed then. The tears came harder, and with them, words that had been bottled up for decades. "I am happy for Miguel. I am so happy," she sobbed. "But I am also angry. I am angry that this is what it took. I am angry that I had to choose between being a mother and being a person. I am angry that Miguel got his dream, but I never got to have one." The confession hit the studio like a physical force. This wasn't the heartwarming story everyone had expected. This was something much more complicated, much more honest. It was the other side of the American dream, the cost that nobody talks about. The people who sacrifice everything so others can succeed. "I never learned to drive because I couldn't afford a car," Maria continued, her voice breaking. "I never learned English properly because I was always too tired to take classes. I never made friends because I was always working or sleeping or taking care of Miguel. I gave up my entire life, and yes, I would do it again, but I am tired of pretending that it doesn't hurt." Jimmy knelt down beside her chair, something he had never done in 15 years of hosting. The cameras caught it all, the moment when late-night television became something deeper, when entertainment became ministry. "How long has it been since someone asked you what you wanted?" Jimmy asked softly. Maria looked at him through her tears, clearly not understanding the question. "What you want, Maria," Jimmy repeated. "Not for Miguel, not for your family. What you want." The question seemed to break something open in Maria. She stared at Jimmy for a long moment, as if no one had ever asked her that before, because probably no one ever had. "I want," she began, then stopped. "I want to see the ocean during the day. I have lived in Los Angeles for 30 years, and I have never seen the Pacific Ocean when the sun is shining on it. I drive past it every morning on my way home from work, but it's always dark." The audience was crying now, not the polite tears of a touching television moment, but the deep, recognizing sobs of people who understood what it meant to sacrifice, to put everyone else's needs first, to lose yourself in the service of others. "I want to take a cooking class," Maria continued, her voice growing stronger. "Not to cook for Miguel or for work, but to cook something I want to eat. I want to learn to make French pastries just because they are beautiful." Jimmy reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. Without explanation, he started typing. "I want to sleep through the night without setting an alarm," Maria said. "I want to wake up naturally when my body is ready, not when I have to be somewhere." "Maria," Jimmy said, looking up from his phone, "what are you doing tomorrow?" She looked confused. "Tomorrow? I work tomorrow night. I always work." Jimmy shook his head. "Not tomorrow. Tomorrow, you're going to see the ocean." The audience began to react, but Jimmy held up his hand for silence. "I just called my assistant," Jimmy said. "Tomorrow morning, a car is going to pick you up at 8 a.m. You're going to Malibu. You're going to see the Pacific Ocean with the sun shining on it. You're going to have lunch at a restaurant overlooking the water, and you're going to order whatever you want without looking at the price." Maria stared at him in disbelief. "But I have to work." "No," Jimmy said firmly. "You have given 30 years to everyone else. Tomorrow, you give 1 day to yourself." He reached into his other pocket and pulled out his wallet. From it, he extracted a credit card and pressed it into Maria's hands. "This is my personal card," he said. "After you see the ocean, I want you to go shopping. Not for Miguel, not for anyone else, for you. Buy yourself something beautiful, something that makes you happy, something that reminds you that you matter too." The studio erupted then, but not with the usual applause. This was something deeper, more primal. People were on their feet, crying, cheering, but underneath it all was a recognition of something profound. They had just witnessed an act of pure humanity. But Jimmy wasn't finished. He stood up and addressed the audience directly. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice carrying a weight that commanded absolute attention. "This is Maria Esperanza Gutierrez. She has spent 30 years sacrificing everything so her son could become a doctor. She has never taken a vacation, never bought herself anything nice, never even seen the ocean during the day." He turned back to Maria, who was clutching his credit card like a lifeline. "But Maria," Jimmy continued, "your story isn't over. Your sacrifice made Miguel's dream possible, but that doesn't mean your dreams have to die. You're 52 years old. You have time. You have earned the right to want things for yourself." Jimmy walked back to his desk, but instead of sitting down, he leaned against it, facing Maria and the audience. "We're going to do something different tonight," he announced. "We're going to start the Maria Esperanza Gutierrez Foundation, right here, right now. This foundation is going to help immigrant parents who have sacrificed everything for their children to find their own dreams again." The audience was on their feet again, the applause deafening. But Jimmy wasn't done. "Maria," he said, waiting for the noise to die down, "I want you to quit your job." The studio went silent again. Maria's eyes widened in shock. "I want you to quit cleaning offices at night and start living during the day. The foundation will pay your salary for the first year while you figure out what you want to do. You want to take cooking classes? We'll pay for them. You want to learn to drive? We'll pay for lessons. You want to go to college? We'll make it happen." Maria was sobbing again, but these were different tears. These were tears of possibility, of hope, of a future she had never allowed herself to imagine. "But there's one condition," Jimmy added with a slight smile. "You have to promise me that you'll remember that your dreams matter too, that your happiness is important, that after 30 years of taking care of everyone else, it's okay to take care of yourself." Maria nodded through her tears, unable to speak. The segment was supposed to end there. The producers were signaling for Jimmy to wrap up, to go to commercial, to return to the normal rhythm of the show. But Jimmy had one more surprise. "Miguel," he called out toward the wings of the stage, "come out here." Maria's son, Dr. Miguel Gutierrez, walked onto the stage. He was tall and handsome, wearing scrubs from his residency at Cedars-Sinai. But more importantly, his face was streaked with tears. He had been watching from backstage, hearing his mother's story, understanding for the first time the full weight of what she had carried. Miguel walked directly to his mother and dropped to his knees beside her chair, just as Jimmy had done. "Mama," he said in Spanish, then switched to English. "I never knew, I never understood what you gave up for me." Maria reached out and touched her son's face. "I would do it again, mijo. 1,000 times I would do it again." "I know," Miguel said, "but Jimmy is right. Your dreams matter too, and I want to help you find them." The father-son moment became a family moment, became a universal moment about sacrifice and love and the complexity of the American dream. But it was Jimmy's final gesture that would be remembered long after the camera stopped rolling. He removed his suit jacket, the same jacket he wore for every taping, his lucky jacket that had been with him through countless shows and countless moments. He walked over to Maria and gently placed it around her shoulders. "This jacket has been with me for every Tonight Show I've ever hosted," Jimmy said. "It's seen celebrities and politicians, musicians, and athletes. But tonight, it's going home with someone who represents the best of what America can be. Someone who reminds us that behind every success story is someone who made it possible." The jacket was too big for Maria's small frame, but she wore it like a crown. It was more than clothing. It was recognition, validation, a symbol that her story mattered. As the cameras finally faded to black and the audience slowly filed out, something had fundamentally changed in that studio. It wasn't just that a game show host had given away his jacket and credit card. It wasn't just that a foundation had been born, or that an immigrant mother had been celebrated. What had changed was the understanding that the most powerful moments in television happen not when everything goes according to plan, but when someone has the courage to show their truth, and someone else has the compassion to honor it. 6 months later, Maria sent Jimmy a photo. She was standing on the beach in Malibu, the Pacific Ocean stretching out behind her, the sun setting over the water. She was wearing a chef's coat. She had enrolled in culinary school and was learning to make those French pastries she had dreamed about. But more importantly, she was smiling. Not the careful, composed smile of someone who has learned to hide her pain, but the radiant, genuine smile of someone who has remembered what it feels like to have hope. The Maria Esperanza Gutierrez Foundation became one of the most successful charitable organizations to emerge from late-night television. It has helped hundreds of immigrant parents rediscover their dreams, providing education, training, and most importantly, the message that their sacrifices don't have to mean the death of their own hopes. Miguel continued his residency, but also became a spokesperson for the foundation, sharing his mother's story and advocating for the families who sacrifice everything for their children's success. He often says that watching his mother find herself was more rewarding than anything he accomplished in medical school. And Jimmy? He learned something that night that changed how he approached every show afterward. He learned that sometimes the most important thing a host can do is stop hosting and start being human. The jacket he gave Maria was replaced, but its memory serves as a reminder that the greatest moments in television happen when we choose connection over content, when we honor someone's truth over entertainment value. Maria still keeps that jacket, now framed in her apartment. The same apartment, but transformed with cooking books, art supplies, and evidence of a life being lived rather than just survived. Next to it hangs her culinary school diploma and a photo of her and Jimmy from that night, two people who discovered that sometimes the most powerful act is simply asking someone what they want and then helping them believe they deserve to have it. The Tonight Show continues to feature heartwarming stories, but staff members who were there that night say it's different now. There's an understanding that behind every success story is complexity, sacrifice, and often dreams deferred. Jimmy approaches each guest not just as an entertainer, but as someone who might need to be seen, really seen, for who they are beyond their achievements. Because that's what happened that Wednesday night in Studio 6B. A woman who had spent 30 years being invisible was finally seen. A son understood the full weight of his mother's love. An audience learned that the American dream has many faces, including those of the people who sacrifice their own dreams to make others possible. And a late-night host discovered that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone isn't laughter, but recognition. Recognition that their story matters, their dreams are valid, and their sacrifice has been seen and honored. It wasn't just television that night. It was a reminder that behind every inspiring story is a human being who deserves to be celebrated not just for what they've given up, but for who they are and who they still have the potential to become. The ripple effects of that evening continued long after the studio lights dimmed. Production assistants who had witnessed the moment found themselves calling their own mothers, having conversations they had been putting off for years. Audience members left the taping with a different understanding of sacrifice, carrying Maria's story home to their dinner tables and family gatherings. The episode, when it aired 3 weeks later, broke viewing records for The Tonight Show. But more importantly, it sparked a national conversation about immigrant families, about the hidden costs of the American dream, and about the importance of seeing the humanity in every story. Social media exploded with people sharing their own stories of sacrifice, of parents who had given up everything, of dreams deferred in service of love. The hashtag Maria's Dream became a rallying cry for recognizing the unsung heroes in every community. Immigration reform advocates used Maria's story to illustrate the complexity of the immigrant experience, showing that behind every success story was a web of sacrifice that deserved recognition and support. Late-night television had been transformed by one woman's honesty, one host's compassion, and one moment when the script was thrown away in favor of authentic human connection. The Tonight Show received thousands of letters from viewers, many of them from immigrant parents who had never seen their own struggles reflected on national television. Dr. Miguel Gutierrez framed that photo of his mother on the beach in his office at Cedars-Sinai, where it serves as a daily reminder that success is meaningless if it comes at the cost of forgetting those who made it possible. He speaks regularly at medical schools about the importance of understanding the sacrifices behind achievement, of recognizing that every doctor, lawyer, and professional has a story of family sacrifice that deserves honor. Maria's transformation became a template for the Foundation's work. The organization developed programs specifically designed to help immigrant parents rediscover their identities beyond their roles as providers and sacrificers. They offered career counseling, educational opportunities, and most importantly, therapy sessions focused on helping parents understand that their dreams mattered too. The Foundation's first scholarship recipient was a 48-year-old Honduran woman who had worked as a house cleaner for 20 years while putting her daughter through nursing school. With the Foundation's support, she enrolled in a community college program to become a teacher, fulfilling a dream she had abandoned when she immigrated to America 30 years earlier. Jimmy often reflects on that night as the moment he truly understood the responsibility that came with his platform. He had always known that late-night television could influence culture, but he had never fully grasped the power of simply seeing someone, really seeing them, and validating their experience. The Tonight Show began incorporating more stories like Maria's, not as inspiration porn, but as genuine recognition of the complexity of human experience. The show's booking team started specifically seeking out guests whose stories challenged the simple narratives often presented in media, choosing instead to explore the nuanced realities of life in America. Maria's story became required viewing at several journalism schools, used as an example of how authentic storytelling could emerge when interviewers were willing to go beyond prepared questions and really listen to their subjects. Communication professors used the episode to teach students about the difference between extractive interviewing and compassionate conversation. The culinary school where Maria enrolled offered her a work-study position after seeing her story, recognizing that her experience and perspective would enrich their program. She became a mentor to other adult learners, particularly immigrant women who were pursuing education later in life. Her presence in the program created a ripple effect, encouraging other students to share their own stories of sacrifice and resilience. Years later, when asked about that night, Jimmy always returns to the same point. The most important television happens when we stop trying to create television and start trying to create connection. Maria taught him that behind every heartwarming story about achievement was a more complex story about cost, sacrifice, and the dreams that get buried along the way to making other dreams possible. The studio where it all happened became something of a pilgrimage site for other late-night hosts and television producers. The chair where Maria sat was never replaced, serving as a reminder that the most powerful moments in media come not from celebrities or politicians, but from ordinary people who are willing to share their extraordinary truths. That Wednesday night in Studio 6B, a cleaning lady from Los Angeles reminded America that the American dream isn't just about the people who achieve it. It's also about the people who make it possible, who sacrifice their own dreams so others can soar, who deserve recognition not just for what they've given up, but for who they are and who they still have the potential to become.